is going to be a 2-part video. So then the next part, I will go over April up until today. I am hoping that I will be able to start recording monthly wrap-ups again. But I haven't been reading as much as in previous months and years. Just been super busy. My kids are getting older, so they are going to bed later, and by the time they're in bed I just want to sit down and read or chill out, so I haven't been reading as much. We have been decorating as well, so been super busy, but I am still reading daily, just not as many chapters. I'm hoping that I will be able to read more again in September when my daughter starts school. I really hope so. So hopefully I will be able to do monthly reading wrap-ups again at that point. But yeah, we are going to go over 10 books today. So sit back and relax and let's jump in to part 1 of this video. So we will start with Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Rose Hill series, which are interconnected, is a series of interconnected standalone romances. I'm sure you've all heard of Elsie Silver. She is the author of the very popular Chestnut Springs series, which I loved. And this is another one of her series. Again, all her series are set in the same world, so you get characters in the Rose Hill series who know characters in the Chestnut Springs series, and so on. And I got the metallic edition of this book, which I love. And this particular book follows Skylar and Western, and Skylar is a famous country singer who's just been going through some bad press, and West is a horse trainer who lives in a small town, and Skylar moves on to West's property, and then it goes from there. This series is also each book is the single dad trope, which I only found out after reading the first book, but knowing that when I went into this book I enjoyed it more than the first book. This book gave me Cade and Willa vibes from Chestnut Springs Heartless, which I literally adored. It was my favourite book that I read last year, and this made me feel like I was reading that book again. It made me so giddy and happy, and I gave it 4.25 stars. I think this is my second favourite Elsie Silver book ever that I've read, so definitely one that I enjoyed. Elsie Silver writes just such good, easy romance. Honestly, if you are trying to get into romance books, I would definitely suggest picking up Elsie Silver's. One thing I will say is that these might not be the most coherent and detailed reviews because I did read these books so long ago, but I will do my best. I probably should have said that before the first review. basically wants to find her without like her knowing. Again, I can't remember the complete ins and outs. All I put in my review was that this was my least favourite Penelope Douglas book. I gave it 2.5 stars, which is the lowest I've given a Penelope Douglas book by quite a lot. And I don't know if it's just because I've read more of her books that were written after this one was written, or whether I've just read like more dark romances that are better, but I just did not enjoy this one at all. I just thought it was like a bit of a mess. There's something about Penelope Douglas is where you go into her work and you kind of know it's going to be convoluted. You kind of know there's going to be like some cringy writing and scenes, but I think in this one I just couldn't get over how bad those particular aspects were. I think if I'd read this when I first started reading like dark romances, or if I read this as my first Penelope Douglas book, I would have rated it higher, but because I read it quite recently, I just, no, it was not for me. So yeah, this was a pass for me. Next up was a duology, which begins with Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. This is kind of like a gothic historical romance, I guess. And I'd heard really good things about it. I picked these both up in charity shops. But I think a few years ago they were like doing the rounds on BookTok or Bookstagram. So I thought I will pick those up. And it follows Hazel. It's set in Edinburgh in 1817, and it follows Hazel, who wants to be a surgeon, and Jack, who is like a grave robber, a resurrection man. He kind of like supplies dead bodies to surgeons, and they meet and goes from there. Basically, Hazel needs bodies to try and study. Obviously, a female in 1817, not want to become a surgeon at that time, and Jack's like poor, so needs the money, so they kind of like team together. And I really actually did enjoy these. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I thought it was well written, and I thought that it had an original plot. And then it starts to become like a little bit of a mystery. Something's going on in Edinburgh which is unexplained, and they're kind of trying to figure that out, which leads on to the second book, which is Immortality, a Love Story. I like the covers of these as well. The first one was like a heart, and this one is a brain, but it looks like a dress. And I can't really say much about this one because there is like a bit of not a plot twist, but something happens at the end which leads on to this one, and then we start off from there. And I said that I enjoyed this one even more. I gave it 3.75 stars. Again, I said it was well written and that I enjoyed the ending of this book too, so I think they wrapped it up really well. It definitely is kind this Maple Hilderson series. She's the author of Icebreaker and Wildfire. Again, Icebreaker was massively popular a few years ago. And this is the third book in the series. And this follows Henry, who we have met in the previous books, and Hallie. Henry is like an athlete, and Hallie is kind of is more of an introvert. Henry's the captain of the ice hockey team now, and Hallie is more of like an introverted character. She lives alone, she's trying to make friends, so they're kind of, I guess, what would seem on the outside like two like opposing characters, but deep down they're not. Henry is also neurodivergent, so we have some neurodivergence representation throughout the book, which I did enjoy. Originally I picked this up and then DNF'd it at 60 pages in, and I think I was in a book hangover from a previous book that I will talk about soon. But then a few weeks later I needed a little palate cleanser between fantasy books, so I picked it back up and I finished it, and I am glad I did because I did enjoy it. It's just like a cute, low stakes romance. Again, it doesn't have the same magic that Icebreaker did, but I do prefer this to Wildfire. I think I probably gave this like 3 stars. I don't know, I think when I'm reading these I'm kind of chasing that magic of Icebreaker because I loved it so much, but we will just take it as it comes. And sometimes I just need like a low stakes romance, like not too much like emotional turmoil going on, and I think Hannah Grace does that pretty well. I do think though that like the general consensus is that the past 2 books, the last 2 books of the Maple Hill series so far aren't as good as the first one. So I'm not sure what's happening with this series, whether there's going to be another book, but I think I would continue it. I would continue the series if another book does come out. If the camera kind of keeps moving slightly between books, it's because I'm having to pick up my phone to read my Goodreads reviews of the books. But then we are on to Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, which is a book in the Throne of Glass series. The next few books are going to be books from that series. There's going to be no spoilers, don't worry, but this is well, if you include like the prequel, then it's the 3rd book, but if you don't include the prequel, then it's the 2nd book. But this is Crown of Midnight. It's really difficult to like explain the story because obviously this is not the first book, but this is a series that follows Selena Sardothian or whatever, who is an assassin, and it follows her life. And there's Throne of Glass, so there's the Assassin's Blade, which is kind of set before the Throne of Glass and gives us a background on her, and then there's Throne of Glass, and then there's Crown of Midnight. And I loved Crown of Midnight so much, honestly, so much. I was a bit worried after Throne of Glass that I wasn't going to be able to get into it because I think Throne of Glass was just kind of like a bit slow and mediocre, but Crown of Midnight was so much better, and this book, I just got so invested in the plot and the characters. I was stupid and went to see how many pages were in the book before reading it, and ended up seeing like the last sentence with the big twist. So that was frustrating. I kind of had an inkling anyway, but to have that confirmed before actually reading it, annoying. But it didn't take away the enjoyment regardless. I literally sat in a coffee shop for like 7 hours reading this book on a Friday when my kids are at school in nursery. I usually like to go and have a hot chocolate and read some of my book, and I just didn't leave until I had to go and collect my children. That's how much I loved this book. It was one of those books that just like reminded me why I loved reading so much, and I think this is my favourite, my second favourite in the whole series. I think it just takes it to like a completely new level compared to Throne of Glass. So I think I gave it 4.75. Then was Air of Fire. In my Goodreads review, I literally just put, this series is now my entire personality, which isn't very helpful, but I'm sat here trying to talk about it. But as from what I can remember, this kind of starts to explore the world, like the like wider world, and not just one particular like city, and kind of what's going on in that world that it might be a problem. Again, they get a lot thicker as well as they go along. So technically this is the third book, but I always see it as the fourth book just because I read The Assassin's Blade first. I gave this one 4 stars, so again, I really enjoyed it. It is just difficult to kind of like decipher between each book because I read them so long ago, and because I've read the whole series, they all merge into one. But 4 stars, again, building up to kind of the issue in the series and what's gonna happen going forward. Then we have Queen of Shadows, which I remember a little bit better. We are introduced to some new characters or points of views in this book, and I initially didn't enjoy the chapters with this character called Manon in. Again, is that actually how you say her name? Is it Manon? I just say that. Initially, I didn't actually enjoy those chapters, but by the end, I loved her, and she is actually one of my favourite characters in the whole series. So it just goes to show that even if you're not enjoying something to begin with, you might end up feeling completely differently about it. As well as that, there's also kind of like little side romances that are going on throughout this book, which I really enjoyed. I think I said like there's no spice needed, the tension is hot enough. So yeah, there's little side romances in this one, there's new characters being introduced, it's a good time. And again, I gave Queen of Shadows, Queen of Shadows is second, but they both happen at the same time, so you can read them as a tandem, which I decided to do. Empire of Storms first. This book was like hyped up so much. I saw like this is like people's favourite book in the whole series, and I think I put it on like such a high pedestal that I was like waiting and waiting and waiting. I did give it 4.25 stars, so again, amazing, one of the best in the series. But I do think I would have enjoyed this more if I didn't read it as the tandem, and that's just because there was so much jumping around between the books. It was hard to kind of get like fully immersed in this particular book. However, there were scenes in this book that again reminded me why I love reading. You know, when you're reading and your kind of like hairs stand on end and you get goosebumps. There were scenes throughout this that I was like that for. I do recommend the tandem for like the experience, but I do also think you would enjoy this book better if you just read it as this book. I also can't imagine like reading this book when it came out, having the ending, and then having to wait 2 books to pick up on that ending again, because the Tower of Dawn, which we will get onto in a moment, is set in a completely new location and follows different characters. So I did enjoy Empire of Storms. I would recommend reading it by itself to get like the full experience of the book and what happens within it, but they made me happy. What I will say is that actually Selena kind of irked me throughout this book, like her entitlement, but she did redeem herself in my eyes. So if you want kind of like a better review with spoilers, go to my Goodreads, which is linked below, and you can be able to read like my thoughts on different scenes and stuff in my review for this on there. And then finally, Tower of Dawn. So like I said, this comes after Empire of Storms, but it happens at the same time. And this is set in a new location, and it follows Kaol, who is a character who has been in all of the books, and it introduces a few new characters as well. Some people didn't like this because they didn't like Kaol. I personally did like him throughout the whole series, so I didn't really struggle much with this book. I gave it 3.75, which is towards the lower ratings of the series, but I still enjoyed it. Again, with the tandem, I think I would have enjoyed this less if I read it by itself, so it's kind of a difficult one of whether you want to read the tandem or not. I think you would enjoy Empire of Storms more not doing the tandem. I think you would enjoy Tower of Dawn less not doing the tandem. So this basically takes a break from kind of that kind of world that we've been reading about, and goes to a different place, which is necessary for the last book. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. I don't think I would have enjoyed it much not reading the tandem. It was nice to kind of like get back to that world sometimes, but I understand why it was so necessary to have this book, because obviously this builds a lot of what is needed for the last book in the series. So yeah, I don't really get the 8 for this book. I enjoyed it. It was okay. It was better than okay. It was good. So, those are 10. Those are 10 of the books that I have been reading lately or this year. There will be a part 2. It will probably be the next video that I upload where we'll go over the rest of the books that I've been reading recently. So, but yeah, it's nice to sit down